This is the weekly Roundup on EAC News Channel. Take a look back at the past week in the Kingdom of Wonder and a very good evening to you. I'm Dekanine and we start with Monday. The Cambodian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Prime Minister Prasokhon, held a bilateral meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on the 13th of May 2022 on the sideline of the ASEAN-US Special Summit. The meeting aimed to promote Cambodia-US relations and cooperation on regional and international issues of common interest. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochin has more details.
According to a statement released by the Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, both the Deputy Prime Minister and the U.S. Secretary of State noted with satisfaction the good cooperation between Cambodia and the United States in many areas, such as economic exchange, mine clearance, peacekeeping, cultural heritage protection, repatriation, and people-to-people exchange. The two sides also discussed issues related to human rights and democracy. U.S. Department of State spokesperson Ned Price stated that Secretary Blinken expressed concerns about the restrictions on human rights and fundamental freedoms in Cambodia, urging the kingdom to drop politically motivated charges and allow opposition politicians to participate freely in upcoming elections. In response, Deputy Prime Minister Prasokhon reaffirmed the Cambodian government's full commitment to an inclusive political process and freedom of expression. He highlighted the multi-party elections held regularly since the early 1990s, which have been assessed as free and fair by local and international observers, along with the existence of hundreds of media establishments and wide social media penetration in Cambodia, the operation of trade unions for workers' rights and protection, and thousands of NGOs and civil societies to promote people's rights and welfare. On the matter of international cooperation, Secretary Blinken thanked Cambodia for contributing to the successful convening of the ASEAN-US Special Summit and for supporting the elevation of ASEAN-US relations to the level of a comprehensive strategic partnership, which is the highest level partnership possible under the ASEAN framework. The two sides exchanged views on the ongoing Myanmar crisis, and Secretary Blinken urged Deputy Prime Minister Prasokhon, in his role as the ASEAN Special Envoy, to continue pushing for the full implementation of the ASEAN five-point consensus, particularly on three urgent priorities, namely the cessation of violence, delivery of humanitarian assistance, and engendering an inclusive political dialogue among all parties concerned. Regarding the matter of the Ream Naval Base, spokesperson Ned Price stated that Secretary Blinken further reiterated U.S. concerns about how the People's Republic of China's construction of military facilities could negatively affect regional security, to which Deputy Prime Minister Prasokhon responded to by reiterating Cambodia's firm adherence to the Cambodian Constitution, which does not permit foreign military base or presence on Cambodian soil. The Deputy Prime Minister underlined that the renovation of the base serves solely to strengthen Cambodian naval capacities, to protect its maritime integrity and combat crimes. The Cambodian Foreign Ministry's press release concludes that the meeting between the two leaders ended with a shared resolve to work closely together to further promote relations of friendship and fruitful cooperation between Cambodia and the United States in all areas. The ASEAN-US Special Summit was held from 12th to 13th May in Washington, D.C., America. Prime Minister Hun Sen co-chaired the summit as the 2022 ASEAN chair, along with U.S. President Joe Biden. While Prime Minister Hun Sen was in Washington, he also met with around 2,000 Cambodians living in the U.S. and Canada. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen publicly stated in front of ASEAN and U.S. leaders during the ASEAN-US Special Summit that Cambodia does not have foreign military bases on its territory. This was a direct response and confirmation from the Cambodian Prime Minister in front of senior U.S. officials, including the President and the Speaker of the House, to repeated accusations made by the United States of Cambodia allowing China to build military facilities in the Ream Naval Base. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
Answering a question from EAC News, the Minister Delegate attached to the Prime Minister, Kao Kim Horn, said that the senior U.S. officials, such as the U.S. President, took note of the Prime Minister's statement and added that this is the last confirmation from Cambodia to the United States regarding this matter, and will hopefully be a positive sign for future relations.
ការដែលសម្ដេចបានលើកនេះចង់បញ្ជាក់ជាផ្លូវការហើយជាចុងក្រោយថាកម្ពុជាពិតមិនមានមូលដ្ឋានកងទ័ពបរទេសនៅលើទឹកដីកម្ពុជាឡើយហើយកម្ពុជាស្វាគមន៍ចំពោះវត្តមាននាវាពីបណ្ដាប្រទេសផ្សេងទៀតរួមទាំងសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកមកកំពង់ផែកម្ពុជានេះបាទដូច្នេះហើយនេះជាការគូបញ្ជាក់ ចំពោះមេដឹកនាំសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកក៏ដូចជាមេដឹកនាំអាស៊ានហើយនឹងមេដឹកនាំខាងសភាដែរកុំឲ្យបន្តលើករឿងនេះទៀតមែនតើទៅមិនថាត្រូវបញ្ចប់ការលើកនេះមិនថាអត់មាននេះទេបាទការឆ្លើយតបមិនមានការឆ្លើយតបអីជានេះទេគ្រាន់តែថាសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកគេកត់សម្គាល់ហើយគេកត់ត្រាទុករឿងនេះហើយដូច្នេះការពិភាក្សាខ្លះការមិនឆ្លើយតបចាត់ទុកជាចម្លើយមួយដែរជាការឆ្លើយតបដែរបាទ
In a meeting with the Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn on the sideline of the ASEAN-US Summit on the 13th of May, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken also raised the issue of Ream Naval Base, expressing concern that the construction of the military facilities at the base by the People's Republic of China would undermine regional security. In response, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn reiterated Cambodia's firm adherence to the Constitution of Cambodia, which does not permit foreign military base or presence of Cambodian soil, and further underlined that the renovation of the base serves solely to strengthen the Cambodian naval capacities to protect its maritime integrity and combat crime. The Director General of International Relations Institute of Cambodia, Dr. King Pia, said that despite the Prime Minister's direct statement on this issue, it would not be possible to end the allegations coming from the United States if the country continues to place the issues under the agenda of politics.
នេះគឺជាអ្វីដែលយើងបានធ្វើគួរធ្វើត្រូវធ្វើឥឡូវគឺយើងធ្វើអស់ហើយសួរថាលៀងជំរះបានឬមិនបានគឺវាលែងជាភារកិច្ចរបស់កម្ពុជាហើយគឺវាទៅជាគេហៅថាការពិចារណាឬក៏សតិសម្បញ្ញៈនៃប្រទេសដែលចោទប្រកាន់យើងនោះទៅវិញបាទ
Tensions between Cambodia and the United States have been high, with the United States accusing Cambodia of trying to hand over the Ream naval base to China and expressing displeasure over the demolition of its aid building at the naval base. Cambodia has attempted to clarify this issue numerous times, but accusations have remained. In connection to the Ream naval base, the United States blacklisted 2 senior Cambodian officials back in November 2021. The Director General of Defence Ministry Material and Technical Service Department, Chow Pulim, and Navy Commander T. Vin, under the Global Magnitsky Sky Act, which authorized the US government to censure foreign government officials to US deem as human rights offenders. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Rachan has won Cambodia's first gold medal in the SEA Games in kickboxing 57kg weight division, while Chun Thong and Sapon Yim have won silver in Patong men's doubles. Also, our silver medalists are Meng Hong Tan, Levi Chung, and Panyan Lon, all in kickboxing, with 10 other athletes in different sports have won bronze medals. Vietnam is leading the medal tally with 69 gold, followed by Thailand 28, Philippines 21, Indonesia 19, Singapore and Malaysia 17, and Cambodia also on the medal tally with a 1 gold, 4 silver, and 10 bronze medals. With 6 days to go, Cambodia are still in with a chance to win more medals. Before the opening of the ASEAN-US Special Summit, the United States mentioned an initiative worth $150 million to strengthen ASEAN-US relations and cooperation. $60 million from this initiative will be allocated to developing maritime cooperation, a move that is likely to affect China. However, the delegation representative of the 2022 ASEAN chair confirmed that this cooperation has not yet been discussed in detail and made into an action plan. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochin has the details.
The minister delegate attached to the Prime Minister, Kao Kim Hoon, confirmed to EAC News that the announcement of strengthened maritime cooperation was just a joint concept formed between the 2 regions and that no specific action plan yet has been made. However, he stressed that maritime cooperation between ASEAN and the United States is beneficial to all countries, particularly on matters related to security, drug and human trafficking, and other illegal activities.
អ្វីដែលសំខាន់គឺការកសាងសមត្ថភាពបាទនឹងការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរព័ត៌មានទៅវិញទៅមកនឹងការធ្វើរបាយការណ៍ជាពិសេសការនេសាទខុសច្បាប់អានោះក៏នៅក្នុងនោះដែរការនេសាទខុសច្បាប់នៅលើទឹកដែនសមុទ្រយើងឧទាហរណ៍ចឹងចោះឬដែនសមុទ្រផ្សេងៗទៀតនៅបណ្ដារដ្ឋជាសមាជិករបស់អាស៊ាននេះហ្នឹងនឹងយើងជាក់ស្ដែងវាអាចទៅអញ្ចឹងថ្ងៃក្រោយគឺថាមានការសហការគ្នាមានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរព័ត៌មានមានការបដិបណ្ដាលហួសហេតុហ្នឹងដូច្នេះអានេះគាត់ប្រមាលមើលដែលអ្វីដែលធ្លាប់ធ្វើមកនៅក្នុងវិស័យផ្សេងៗទៀត បាទជាក់ស្ដែងយើងនៅរងចាំថាតើផែនការសកម្មភាពសម្រាប់អនុវត្តទស្សនទានរួមបាទនេះគឺថានឹងអាចធ្វើឡើងនៅពេលខាងមុខនេះបាទ
In the joint vision statement of the 2022 ASEAN-US Special Summit, the two sides pledged to promote maritime cooperation through the ASEAN-led mechanism. ASEAN-US plans to establish new relations as well as enhance cooperation and coordination among relevant agencies, including maritime law enforcement agencies, to work together to improve maritime awareness, search and rescue, maritime security, and prevention of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing through the sharing of information, practice and expertise, as well as technical assistance that will complement and not replicate existing mechanisms. The two sides pledged to continue efforts to protect, restore, and manage the marine environment sustainably. The 10th point in this joint vision statement is, we are dedicated to maintaining peace, security, and stability in the region, and to ensuring maritime security and safety, as well as freedom of navigation and overflight and other lawful uses of the seas, as described in the 1982 UNCLOS, and unimpeded lawful maritime commerce, as well as non-militarization and self-restraint in the conduct of activities. In a press release issued on 12 May 2022, ahead of the ASEAN-US Summit at the White House, U.S. President Joe Biden announced a $150 million initiative, of which $60 million will be used to expand maritime cooperation between the U.S. and ASEAN. This initiative will be largely led by the U.S. Coast Guard. The U.S. Coast Guard will manage money and equipment, deploy additional staff to the Indo-Pacific, a cutter to Southeast Asia and Oceania for security cooperation, as well as train ASEAN countries in these areas. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian stated during a regular press conference on Friday that China and ASEAN do not seek zero-sum games or push for bloc confrontation. China welcomes all cooperation initiatives as long as they can promote long-term and sustainable development and common prosperity in the region. He continued, both China and the U.S. are Asia-Pacific countries. There is no reason why we cannot share regional friends. It is important to heed the call of regional countries to maintain peace, deepen cooperation, and seek common development and uphold the principles of mutual respect and win-win cooperation. The South China Sea dispute escalated in 2013 when China began building the Spratly and Paracel Islands. The 5 ASEAN countries involved in the dispute over territorial and maritime claims and trade routes with China are the Philippines, Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam. The president of the Royal Academy of Cambodia, Dr. Sok Tuch, told EAC News that by enhancing relations with ASEAN this year, it shows that the United States is looking to increase its influence in Southeast Asia after holding concerns about Chinese influence and seeing regional failures in Africa and East Asia. He added that increasing maritime cooperation between ASEAN and the United States was only a temporary initiative, but could not have a serious impact on China.
ខ្ញុំគិតថានេះគ្រាន់តែជារូបភាពទេបាទដើម្បីប្រមូលកម្លាំងទេភាពពិតគឺអ្នកដែលខ្លាំងនោះគឺកូរ៉េត្បូងហើយជប៉ុននោះទេបាទអាស៊ានវាឃើញថាវាប្រទេសនោះ3 4វាជាប់ទំនាស់ហ្វីលីពីនម៉ាឡេស៊ីហើយនឹងឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីអីនេះជាប់វៀតណាមនឹងវាជាប់ប៉ុន្តែពីគ្រាន់ជាការពូតផ្ដុំដើម្បីទប់ទល់ស្ថានភាពទេប៉ុន្តែបញ្ហានេះគឺមានតែបញ្ហាសម្រុះសម្រួលដោះស្រាយដោយសន្តិវិធីបាទបទពិសោធន៍តែធៀបរឹងទៅទឹករបស់អាមេរិកនិង NATO នឹងហើយដែលធ្វើឲ្យពិភពលោកឈឺក្បាលរុស្ស៊ីទប់មិនបានហ្នឹងវាបង្កើតបានជាសង្គ្រាមឈ្លានពានហ្នឹង
The 2022 ASEAN Chair, Prime Minister Hun Sen, announced on 11th May from Washington, D.C., during a meeting with more than 2,000 Cambodians living in the United States and Canada, that any initiative in the Asia-Pacific region for Cambodia is based on 3 principles: to serve peace and development, to not be against any country, and to respect the unity of ASEAN.
នេះជាគោលការណ៍ 3 ដែលយើងសម្រេចថាគ្រប់គ្រងឬមិនគ្រប់គ្រង នៅក្នុងក្របខ័ណ្ឌគំនិតរួចផ្ដើមទាក់ទិននឹងឥណ្ឌូប៉ាស៊ីហ្វិកឬអាស៊ីប៉ាស៊ីហ្វិកខ្ញុំបានបញ្ជាក់ប្រាប់នាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីជប៉ុនមូលហេតុដែលខ្ញុំគ្រប់គ្រងនៅនយោបាយនៅគំនិតរួចផ្ដើមឥណ្ឌូប៉ាស៊ីហ្វិកសេរីនឹងបើកចំហខ្ញុំមានគោលការណ៍របស់ខ្ញុំអាស៊ានក៏មានគំនិតរួចផ្ដើមស្ដីអំពីឥណ្ឌូប៉ាស៊ីហ្វិករបស់ខ្លួន ឥឡូវកំពុងតែ រៀបចំជាផែនការសកម្មភាពដូច្នេះអាស៊ានមិនអាចដើរគ្រប់គ្រងនៅនេះដើរគ្រប់គ្រងនៅនោះដោយភ្លេចនៅអ្វីដែលជាគោលការណ៍របស់ខ្លួនដាក់ចេញនោះទេវាស្របនឹងគោលចំហរបស់កម្ពុជា
Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
You're watching EAC News. Thank you for joining us. Philippines election winner Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. said on Wednesday, 11th of May, that he would hit the ground running as president and was looking very carefully at candidates for his economic team while thanking his supporters after achieving a landslide election victory.
The international community have started to welcome Marcos' presidency. Leaders from several countries have sent messages of congratulations of the camp of the president-elect Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. of Partido Federal Philippines on his implementing win of 2022 national elections. Marcos Jr., commonly referred as Bongbong Marcos, is the son of the namesake of the late dictator who ruled for 20 years before his 1986 overthrow. He won this year's elections with a landslide victory. Previously, he served as senator from 2010 to 2016.
If you're asking regarding with the martial law thing, I don't think that he will do the same thing, because I mean, the martial law back in the Philippines, I think it's necessary because there's a going anarchy going on in the Philippines during that time, and a lot of people rebelling, so military power is needed. But the brutality of it, I don't think that will happen. But if this regards in making the nation great again, his father is one of the proponents, and I think one of the best presidents that we ever had. So I think he will be.
A member of one of the country's most notorious political families, Marcos Jr. is a successful culmination of decades-long rebranding campaign that has revived the Marcos family name and image. A politician has a criminal record.
And it's also the first time in history wherein a presidential candidate doesn't need to attend presidential debates, doesn't have to present any platform, had convictions of corruption, but yet he won. So the qualifications in the law in the Philippines is very minimal. I think it's only if you're more than 18 years old and a Filipino citizen, and probably that's it. So for years, that has been the problem in the Philippines in terms of candidates running for the office. It's mostly about popularity contest. Most artists, because they're very popular, they tend to win the seat, and that's what we're trying to avoid. And that's why this campaign or this election is very, very important, because for the first time we have someone like Vice President Leni Robredo who's really standing and really committed to a good governance. And we also saw that result because when she was the vice president, she made a lot of successful campaigns, especially during pandemic. Okay. However, I wanted to say that also first time in history, I've witnessed the power of people's campaign. What I mean by people's campaign is what I've mentioned is like when Vice President Leni Robredo decided to run, she doesn't have any huge funds. She doesn't have any a lot of support, especially financial support. However, through all the campaign period, I witnessed a lot of volunteerism from the Filipinos. We've witnessed kindness, creativity, and commitment by individuals, by Filipinos, to support Vice President in her candidacy. And that's also in Cambodia. I've also gained new friends here because we shared similar values. We shared same hope that finally we have a leader who can make a difference.
Born on September 13, 1957, Marcos Jr. is the second child and only son of former president, dictator, and kleptocrat Ferdinand Marcos Sr. and former First Lady Imelda Romualdez Marcos. In 1970, Marcos was sent to England where he lived and studied at Worth School. He was studied there when his father declared martial law throughout the Philippines in 1972. He then enrolled at St. Emma's Hall, Oxford, to study philosophy, politics and economics. Despite his claims that he was graduated from a Bachelor of Arts in PPE, Oxford confirmed in 2015 that he had only received a special diploma in social studies, not a full graduate diploma. Having been in public service for over 25 years, Marcos Jr. has achieved a distinguished career in government. His electoral journey has allowed him to serve in several positions in both the executive and legislative branches of government. His various stints in the government have allowed him to carve his niche in rich polity history of the Philippines. From 1998 to 2007, Marcos Jr. served as governor at Ilocos Norte, where he served for 3 consecutive terms. In 2007, he was once again elected as Congress, where he was appointed Deputy Minority Leader of the House of Representatives. While serving as Governor, Marcos Jr. has been accredited for transforming the province of Ilocos Norte into a first-class province, prime agricultural exporter and tourism hotspot, which he said to have achieved by capitalising on the strengths of the land and its people and looking for new modern opportunities to develop province.
I'm actually highly satisfied with the result. I mean, I expect President Marcos, I will call him president now, even if he's not, it's not official yet, but despite, I believe him to win the election because of the surveys that's going on in the Philippines, the Octa research and all those, he's been dominating the surveys. But a landslide victory after this election, the unofficial tally last Tuesday, I think around 98% of the election returns was able to count was a 31 million vote. That's a history-making kind of election.
Well, only this time. I mean, to see the election results, I'm very sad. I am disappointed, and there's a lot of emotions actually is happening. Until now, I still can't believe that the results of the elections. I still can't believe that a lot of Filipinos were blinded by the truth. And first time in our history that a presidential candidate has a huge, massive votes in a presidential election.
Moving forward, Marcos Jr. ran for presidential office in 2022 elections and won with a landslide, 31 million votes, leading by more than 16 million votes among the population of 110 million people in the Philippines. Marcos Jr. has said he would hit the ground running as presidential and stated he would carefully elevating candidates for his economic team with infrastructure, jobs and energy prices as the main priorities. Reflecting on his campaign, he said very little about his objectives and focused more on a beginner's message and unity of the country that have been long divided opinions of the Marcos family and their far-reaching political influence.
A shower of white, brightly burning munitions cascaded down on the Azovstal steelworks in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol in a video released by a pro-Russian separatist commander on Sunday, 15th of May, 2022.
The video shows projectiles bursting into showers of burning matter, which then explode on contact with the ground or buildings. Reuters was able to verify the location of the aerial footage to the Azovstal steel plant. The building seen in the video matched satellite imagery. Reuters was not able to confirm the time and date this video was taken. The video was posted on the Telegram messaging application by Alexander Khodakovsky, a commander of the pro-Russian self-proclaimed Republic of Donetsk. If you didn't know what it is and for what purpose, you could say that it's even beautiful, Khodakovsky said in a message beside the video. Khodakovsky could not be immediately reached for comment. Reuters was not able to immediately identify the type of munitions used in the video. The Ukrainian military said there was no let-up on Sunday in Russia's bombardment of the steelworks in the southern port, where a few hundred Ukrainian fighters are holding out weeks after the city fell into Russian hands. While Ukrainian National Guard and volunteers that seized the village of Ruska-Lazovo in fierce fighting on May 8th, 4 days into a counter-offensive that has thwarted Russia's bid to seize nearby Kharkiv, say Russian troops are withdrawing across border. We are pushing the Russians away and they go back to Russia. In the north and in the Kharkiv region, thanks be to God they leave. They head towards Russia, Alexander Yuvachenko, one of the soldiers, said. They left really quickly. They did not even have time to loot much. A lot of positions were abandoned, flak jackets and helmets laying around, another soldier said.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has asked the United States administration through the U.S. ambassador to Cambodia to clarify the case of violence acted upon by the opposition, when an individual threw a shoe towards the Prime Minister during his visit to Washington, D.C. for the ASEAN-US Special Summit last week. He has asked the United States whether this case could be considered an act of freedom of expression or violence, and said that if the United States considers this action freedom of expression, then it will be able to spread to other countries, including Cambodia as well. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochin has the details.
តើទង្វើគប់បែបនេះដោយមានការប៉ុនប៉ងយ៉ាងច្បាស់កលែតតាមរយៈបទសម្ភាសន៍ដែលមានតាមទៅដល់សេអ៊ូលមានរបៀបរៀបចំធ្វើយ៉ាងម៉េចដើម្បីឲ្យបានចូលជាការប៉ុនប៉ងហើយក៏បានធ្វើសកម្មភាពដែរតើសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកចាត់ទុកថានេះជាសិទ្ធិបញ្ចេញមតិឬក៏ជាហិង្សាខ្ញុំផ្ដាំផ្ញើទៅភាគីអាមេរិកខ្ញុំមិនបដៅអាមេរិកទេអាមេរិកត្រូវគិតឲ្យច្បាស់លើចំណុចនេះសង្ឃឹមថាឯកឧត្តមអគ្គរដ្ឋទូតនៅទីក្រុងភ្នំពេញបញ្ជូនសារនេះទាំងស្រុងទៅកាន់រដ្ឋបាលអាមេរិកបើសិនជាអាមេរិកចាត់ទុកថារឿងនេះវាជាសិទ្ធិបញ្ចេញមតិប្រហែលជារឿងនេះនឹងកើតនៅគ្រប់ប្រទេសទាំងអស់រាប់ទាំងកម្ពុជា
While meeting with supporters in front of his hotel in Washington, D.C., Ok Tuot, a 75-year-old Cambodian-American man, threw a shoe at the Prime Minister's supporters, which was considered immoral and arrogant. Speaking at a meeting with the Samdech Tekcho Voluntary Youth Association at the OCIC Center in Phnom Penh on Tuesday, 17th May 2022, Prime Minister Hun Sen asked the United States administration through the U.S. ambassador to Cambodia to clarify whether the shoe-throwing incident is freedom of expression or violence. He said he feared that if the United States considers this case an act of freedom of expression, then his supporters might do the same thing against the opposition group.
នៅអាមេរិកធ្វើបាននៅស្រុកខ្មែរក៏ធ្វើបានដូចគ្នានេះជាការឡងមួយដ៏ខ្ពស់ហើយហានិភ័យខ្ពស់ណាស់តែខ្ញុំសំណូមពរឲ្យបងប្អូនយើងអត់ធ្មត់តែក្រៃលោយើងគ្រប់គ្រងគេអត់បានបើសិនជាអាមេរិកចាត់ទុកថារឿងនេះវាជាសិទ្ធិបញ្ចេញមតិប្រហែលជារឿងនេះនឹងកើតនៅគ្រប់ប្រទេសទាំងអស់រាប់ទាំងកម្ពុជា
The Prime Minister further stated that he did not want the United States to take any action against the person who threw the shoe, but only asked the United States to clarify this matter. EAC News has reached out to the U.S. Embassy in Cambodia for comment, however, are still awaiting a response. Cambodian political observers have expressed their opposition to Ok Tuot's actions. Political analyst Seng Seri wrote on his Facebook page that he did not support what Ok Tuot did and described the act as immoral and violent. He wrote, "Immoral and violent acts are not the heroism of Democrats. For who are Democrats that hate violence but throw a shoe at our hero? Please reconsider again." Commenting on the incident, Deputy Prime Minister Men Sam-on described Ok Tuot's actions as an insult to the Prime Minister of Cambodia, an act conducted by inferior people. She wrote on her official Facebook page, "This degrading act is unacceptable to the Cambodian people and cannot be pardoned of all extremists." The young lawmaker and son of the Prime Minister, Hun Mani, also spoke about the incident and stated that he could not accept such an insult made to his father from the opposition in the United States, saying, "This act, we are all members of the party and the people. The Cambodian people who support the Cambodian People's Party cannot mitigate or reduce the guilt of all extremists. We must remember and not forget their extremism," Hun Mani further wrote on his official Facebook page on the afternoon of 12th May 2022. He added, "You must also remember that whoever does it will receive it back." T. Savanta, a former youth activist for the CNRP who shifted her allegiance to the CPP, wrote on her Facebook page, also condemning the shoe-throwing incident. She quoted an interview given by former CNRP leader Sam Rainsy for Radio France on 16th May, where he said he considers throwing shoes a right of expression. In response to this, she said Sam Rainsy must remember his words, as if he is ever lucky enough to return to Cambodia, millions of shoes will fly to welcome him. She further added, Politicians' words are very influential. I beg you not to sow the fury of violence. Prime Minister Hun Sen thanked the Cambodian people living in the United States and Canada for welcoming and meeting with him in Washington, D.C., as well as for not retaliating against any attacks made against him. He said he's proud of his supporters in the United States and Canada for maintaining their dignity and respecting U.S. law, and further urged his supporters to remain patient and dignified. Prime Minister Hun Sen also sent a message to analysts saying to be careful in their analyses so as to avoid distortion. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has warned a Ministry of Health authorized vaccine company that its COVID-19 vaccine production license may be revoked after receiving reports from the company's Chinese counterpart that the Cambodian side has been slow to set up factory production. He also assured the public that there will be no shortage of COVID-19 vaccines because even if Cambodia may be poor, the government will not allow people to die. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
While speaking at a meeting with some Dek Chol Volunteer Youth Doctor Association on Tuesday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen questioned the Ministry of Health about the delay of establishment of the COVID-19 vaccine factory in Cambodia. He ordered to receive weekly update reports and said that if the company cannot step up the factory in a timely manner, then their COVID-19 vaccine license will be revoked and the state will take over Endeavour instead.
ខុសគ្នារឿងអីមានបញ្ហាអីមិនក៏មិនរាយការណ៍ឲ្យក្រសួងសុខាភិបាលហើយក្រសួងសុខាភិបាលខ្លួនឯងកុំត្រឹកហើយយើងចំអញ្ចឹងចុះណាវិស័យឯកជនដែលចង់ធ្វើឥឡូវគាត់ថាមិនកើតទេដកហូតយកមកក្រសួងរបស់យើងធ្វើតែម្ដងទៅវាមិន
He further stated that Cambodia needs these COVID-19 vaccines on hand because he would not allow people to die due to lack of vaccines. The Prime Minister, however, also assured that Cambodia still has nearly 10 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines left, and some friendly countries have promised to send more later, so there is no shortage of vaccines for the people, and vaccinations in Cambodia remain free of charge. He said that if the royal government started charging people for vaccine, it would cost $10 to $15, but doing so could lead to corruption, with some made dare to charge much higher prices. He said, "This is not time to take people's money, it's time to help people." The Prime Minister underlined that they would not charge for vaccine and force the poor to have borrowed money just to get vaccinated, leading to more destitution. He stated that in addition to providing free vaccination, the state will also help support those who continue to be in crisis every month. He added that more than 28 million COVID-19 vaccines provided to public, more than half was purchased by Cambodia.
កម្ពុជាបានចំណាយលុយខ្លួនឯងទិញ28លានកន្លះអញ្ចឹងបូកទៅកម្ពុជាមានសមត្ថភាពដើម្បីចាក់ជូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋរបស់ខ្លួនឥឡូវនេះ52លានដែលបានមកដល់បើយើងគិត28លាន5សែនរបស់កម្ពុជាគឺមានចំណែកធំជាងជំនួយពីបណ្ដាប្រទេសនានាទាំងអស់
During his speech, the Prime Minister also said that he decided to reject the proposal of the Minister of Tourism to drop the quarantine mandate for those who have not been vaccinated, as dropping quarantine measures for the unvaccinated can discourage citizens from getting the COVID-19 vaccines. So far, Cambodia has received and purchased more than 52 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has said that he spoke with the Minister of Justice, Thai Rit, about changing his date of birth from the 4th of April 1951 to his actual date of birth, 5th of August 1952. Addressing a meeting with the Samdak Dakjo Voluntary Youth Doctor Association on Tuesday morning at the Chojangwa International Exhibition Hall in Phnom Penh, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that after his return from Switzerland, he will submit to the court a decision on changing his official date of birth before presenting the changed dates on his official identification documents to the king and announcing the change to the public, as well as to ambassadors of friendly countries. Currently, the Prime Minister's official date of birth is listed as 4th of April, which is the day the Prime Minister fled to the jungle during the Khmer Rouge. The Cambodian indoor volleyball team has reserved a place in the semi-finals with one game left to play against Thailand on May 18th. The semi-finals will be played on May 20th, 2022. Men's football draw with Malaysia 2-2. Cambodian swimmers are in the pool this evening hoping for a medal. Also tonight, Our athletes will be competing in Greco wrestling, fencing, and taekwondo. The host country is on top of the medal tally with a total of 197 medals. Vietnam is leading the medal tally with 88 gold, followed by Thailand 36, Philippines 30, Singapore 24, Indonesia 23, and Malaysia 19. Cambodia is also on a medal tally with 1 gold, 4 silver, and 10 bronze medals. Cambodia are still in with a chance to win more medals with 5 days to go. The SEA Games will be held in Cambodia next year. Sri Lankan security forces have been ordered to shoot lawbreakers on sight in a bid to quell anti-government protests on the island. Demonstrators are calling for the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa over the island's worst economic crisis in history. On Monday, his brother Mahinda Rajapaksa stepped down as prime minister amid violent street clashes, but the resignation failed to bring calm and violence continued. Yesterday, the government ordered troops to open fire on anyone looting public property or causing harm to life. It also deployed tens of thousands of army, navy, and air force personnel to patrol the streets of the capital, Colombo. Despite their presence, the city's top police officer was assaulted yesterday afternoon by a mob accusing him of not doing enough to protect peaceful protesters. At Colombo's gale-faced green on the seafront, crowds also continue to gather. Police say 8 people have died, and the capital's main hospital says more than 250 people have been wounded since Monday. Ashana Handugoda, a senior journalist and prominent socio-political analyst in Sri Lanka, said Mahinda inadvertently informed security forces to attack and assault peaceful protesters, and they were subjected to the most brutal attacks. Former Prime Minister and current Member of Parliament Mahinda Rajapaksa are directly responsible for these 8 dead bodies, namely the criminal killings, Mara Singhe added. The journalist urged the Bar Association to step in and suggested taking the case to court to sue Mahinda Rajapaksa for his barbaric attacks on civilians and arresting him to prevent him from leaving the country. The son of the Prime Minister who planned this has fled the country today, Tuesday, Mara Singhe said. Professor Ashu Mara Singhe, Member of Parliament, has urged defenseless people in the country to take to the streets, saying that expelling the Rajapaksa family from the country is the only way to end the crisis. Meanwhile, Harinda Fosenka, founder and CEO of the Good Poll movement in Sri Lanka, accused Rajapaksa supporters of destroying the protest venue, saying that courageous people who are trying to build a better Sri Lanka are being attacked. The European Union has not yet found agreement on a 6th package of sanctions against Russia. Its top diplomat Joseph Borrell said after a meeting of the bloc's foreign ministers in Brussels on Monday, 16th of May.
Ambassadors now charged to negotiate an agreement.
We will continue imposing sanctions on Russia to make the cost of the invasion unbearable to the Kremlin. We continue discussing, and unhappily today it has not been possible to reach an agreement to finalize the 6th sanction package. The issue will go back to the COREPER and ambassadors will continue discussing. We are with the same difficulties about unanimity on the oil ban.
EU foreign ministers failed on their effort to pressure Hungary to lift its veto on a proposed oil embargo on Russia. The EU needs 27 states to agree to embargo for it to go ahead. The ban on crude imports proposed on the European Commission in early May made it to be the harshest sanctions yet to response of Moscow's February 24th invasion of Ukraine and inches carve-outs for EU states most dependent on Russian oil.
And we went through an analysis of every way to provide financial support in front of the worsening humanitarian situation, in front of the financial needs during the war, for the post-reconstruction of the country, and mainly to defend themselves. And we agreed to provide an additional 500 million from European Peace Facility for weapons deliveries. What started with 500 million, now it reaches 2,000 millions.
Hungary has not received any new serious proposals from the European Commission regarding oil sanctions on Russia since the visit of the Commission President to Budapest earlier this month. Hungary's Foreign Minister said on Monday on his Facebook page. The European Commission has caused a problem with the proposal, so it's a rightful expectation from Hungary that the EU should offer a solution to finance investments and compensate for the resulting price rises, which necessitates a total of modification of Hungary's energy structure in a magnitude of 15 to 18 billion euros, Peter Selechko said. He said another solution would be to make oil shipments via pipeline exempt from the planned embargo.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
The U.S. Embassy spokesperson to Cambodia, Chad Rodemert, told EAC News that the United States welcomed Prime Minister Hun Sen and other ASEAN heads of state to Washington, D.C. for a successful ASEAN-U.S. Special Summit. He said the meeting demonstrated the United States' long-term commitment to ASEAN's centrality in providing sustainable solutions to key regional challenges. EAC News reporter Dashana Gojin has the story.
Spokesperson Chad Rodemeyer told EAC News the United States and ASEAN have committed to establish an ASEAN-US comprehensive strategic partnership that is meaningful, substantive, and mutually beneficial at the 10th ASEAN-US Summit in November 2022. The response from the U.S. Embassy spokesperson in Cambodia was made on the evening of Tuesday, 17th May 2022, seeming to indicate the close relationship between Cambodia and the United States after the ASEAN-US Special Summit. Prior to the summit, Prime Minister Hun Sen was greeted by a large crowd of Cambodians living in the United States and Canada in front of the Willard Intercontinental Hotel, his residence in Washington, D.C. The ASEAN-US Special Summit was held on 12th to 13th May, chaired by U.S. President Joe Biden and co-chaired by Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen. After the summit, ASEAN and the U.S. reached a 28-point joint vision statement, according to the U.S. State Department. The 28-point joint vision statement emphasizes the importance of adhering to the key principles, shared values, and norms set out in the Charter of the United Nations, the ASEAN Charter, the Declaration on Zone of Peace, Freedom, and Neutrality, the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia, the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the Treaty on the Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone, and the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. ASEAN and the United States reaffirmed the joint commitment to strengthen and build more comprehensive ASEAN-US dialogue partnership that has been long indispensable to ASEAN and the United States, as well as the broader region and the international community, in order to promote and maintain peace, security, stability, and prosperity in the region, to ensure that relations remain adaptable to meet new challenges, and to cooperate appropriately in international and regional forums where ASEAN and the United States are members. The reaffirmation of the joint commitment includes maintaining and promoting peace, security, and stability in the region, as well as the peaceful resolution of disputes, including full respect for the legal and diplomatic process without resorting to threats or intimidation or use of force, in accordance with international law. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Cambodia-US relations began in 1950 at a time when the world was going through the Cold War crisis. This relationship has been seen as both bad and good from the beginning, but more recently, Cambodia and China have been getting closer, and the tensions between Cambodia and the US have become more apparent. However, during a meeting in Washington, D.C. on the 11th of May with more than 2,000 Cambodians living in the United States and Canada, Prime Minister Hun Sen stated that relations between Cambodia and the United States have reached a historical peak in both diplomatic and trade relations. EAC News reporter Darshana Gochan has more.
Prime Minister Hun Sen believes that some of the issues and misunderstandings that Cambodia and the United States have with each other will be able to be resolved through mediation. He has previously affirmed that Cambodia wants to be friends with all countries in the world, including the United States. So the question then is, will Cambodia-US relations be able to improve? According to the president of the Institute of International Relations of the Royal Academy of Cambodia, Dr. Kin Phia, through examining the ASEAN-US summit, he believes the relationship between Cambodia and the United States was strengthened, but that pushing the relationship between the two countries to a higher level will require the goodwill of both countries. In his perspective, Cambodia has always generally shown a strong desire to build relations with the United States and other countries in the world.
អញ្ចឹងសួរថាតើវារឹងមាំវាដែលយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រគ្រប់ជ្រុងជ្រោយនៃទំនាក់ទំនងរវាងប្រទេសទាំងពីរបែបណានោះគឺវាចំណុះទៅលើសច្ឆន្ទៈនិងគោលបំណងក៏ដូចជាភាពស្មោះត្រង់របស់សហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកនៅក្នុងទំនាក់ទំនងរបស់ខ្លួនជាមួយនឹងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាផងដែរបាទ
Cambodia has spent more than $720,000 on hiring American consulting firm Akin Gump Strauss Hauer and Feld LLP to lobby the United States to better understand Cambodia, especially regarding ongoing misunderstandings such as the issue of the Ream Naval Base. During a meeting with Akin Gump Representative Scott David Parvin in the United States on the morning of 12th May, Prime Minister Hun Sen urged the representative to lobby more about Cambodia to the United States. That same day, the Prime Minister also met with Michael Putrazello, a representative from the U.S. public relations firm Corvus Communications, to urge them to spread more truths about Cambodia to the world and to present a look at the kingdom that is not only from the side of the opposition media. Dr. Ir Sopal, an associate professor at Arizona State University and an expert in political science and international affairs, told EAC News via email that simply hiring a consulting firm could not improve Cambodia-US relations. He wrote, "Lobbying is a Washington, D.C. pastime. Everyone does it that has money to squander, from Saudi Arabia to Cambodia. Why the Prime Minister would waste his time to go talk to his own lobbyist must be because he has so much time to waste." However, in Dr. Kin Phia's perspective, hiring a lobbying company to help Cambodia-US relations is still a positive step, as it at least shows Cambodia's efforts to improve its relationship with the United States.
ជាការមើលឃើញរបស់ខ្ញុំតិចឬច្រើនក្រុមហ៊ុននេះវាអាចថាយ៉ាងហោចណាស់ក៏បាននាំនៅរូបភាពពិតខ្លះអំពីប្រទេសកម្ពុជាទៅដល់អ្នកធ្វើគោលនយោបាយរបស់សហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកក៏ដូចជាសាធារណជនសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកដែរហើយសួរថាតើក្រុមហ៊ុននេះជួយបានកម្រិតណាអាចនឹងនាំឲ្យកម្ពុជាយើងមានទំនាក់ទំនងល្អជាមួយសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកកម្រិតណាខ្ញុំគិតថាយើងពិបាកប៉ាន់ស្មានណាពីព្រោះតាមរយៈនៃអរិយការទូតអាមេរិកកន្លងមកនេះគឺมันមានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរអីច្រើនចំពោះប្រទេសកម្ពុជាដោយសារតែនៃតំបន់ដែលក្រុមហ៊ុននឹងបានជួយទេ
In a meeting with Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhon on the sideline of the ASEAN-US Summit on 13th May, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also raised the issue of human rights and fundamental freedoms in Cambodia. He urged Cambodia to drop political charges and to allow opposition politicians to participate freely in the upcoming elections. He also reiterated U.S. concerns about how the construction of military facilities by the People's Republic of China at the Ream Naval Base could have a negative impact on regional security. In response, Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn stated that Cambodia is fully committed to a process of inclusion and freedom of speech. He mentioned that elections in Cambodia are free, fair, and protect the rights and well-being of the people. As for the allegations against the Ream Naval Base, the Deputy Prime Minister said that Cambodia adheres to the Constitution, which does not allow any foreign base or presence in Cambodia. He said, the renovation of the base serves solely to strengthen the Cambodian naval capacities, to protect its maritime integrity and combat crimes. For Dr. Irsupal, in order to build good relations with the United States, Cambodia does not need a lobbyist and rather needs to work on the real issues that the U.S. government has raised, such as Cambodia's ever-growing relationship with China and the state of democracy and human rights in the country. On the other hand, Dr. Kin Phia thinks that Cambodia has made every effort to respond to the United States, but what is important is the United States' willingness to increase good relations with Cambodia. Prime Minister Hun Sen explained why he believed the Cambodia-U.S. relationship had reached its peak by underlying how the U.S. Embassy is firmly established in the kingdom and by highlighting the growing economic and trade ties between the two countries.
ទំនាក់ទំនងរវាងកម្ពុជានិងអាមេរិកបានដើរដល់ចំណុចកំពូលដែលមិនធ្លាប់មានក្នុងប្រវត្តិសាស្ត្រពិតមែនតែវាមានលេចលែងដែរក៏ប៉ុន្តែសូមឲ្យសង្កេតលើបញ្ហាពីរមុនគេទី1មុនឆ្នាំ2000តើអាមេរិកមានស្ថានទូតផ្ទាល់ខ្លួននៅកម្ពុជាឬអត់ចម្លើយគឺអត់មានទេអាមេរិកជួលផ្ទះគេទៅនៅទេក្រោយឆ្នាំ2000ជាពិសេសក្រោយដំណាក់កាលដែលកម្ពុជារកឃើញសន្តិភាពពេញលេញអាមេរិកបានកសាងស្ថានទូតនៅកម្ពុជាទីតាំងស្ថានទូតនៅកម្ពុជាគឺជាទីតាំងល្អបំផុតប្រសិនបើមិនមែនជាអាមេរិកទេខ្ញុំអត់ផ្ដល់ឲ្យទេកន្លែងហ្នឹងព្រោះជាក្លឹបរបស់យុវជនឈិតវត្តភ្នំ100ទី2ក្នុងប្រវត្តិទំនាក់ទំនងពាណិជ្ជកម្មពេលនេះគឺជាពាណិជ្ជកម្មដែលធំបំផុតជាងទំហំពាណិជ្ជកម្មដែលនាំចូលមកអាមេរិកជាង 9,000 លានឥឡូវក្រុមហ៊ុនអាមេរិកកាន់តែច្រើនទៅស្រុកខ្មែរ
Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces and the Commander of the Royal Cambodian Army, Lieutenant General Hun Manet, met with the Ambassador of the Republic of France in Cambodia, Jacques Palais, at the headquarters of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces on Tuesday afternoon. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more details.
During the meeting, Lieutenant General Hun Manet mentioned the long-standing friendship between the two countries, who have so far enjoyed good cooperation in all fields. On behalf of the Cambodian people, Lieutenant General Hun Manet thanked the French Republic for its past assistance to Cambodia on many important tasks, such as the national unification of Cambodia through France's role in co-chair of Paris's conference, the development of peacekeeping forces to Cambodia, the provision of development assistance and scholarships for Cambodian students, aiding legal development, including providing funding for Khmer Rouge Tribunal, supporting the incorporation of Prevahir Temple as the World Heritage Site, providing funding for the COVID-19 research project, as well as supporting Cambodia's role in the 2022 Asean Chair and the Prime Minister's efforts to find peaceful solution ongoing conflict in Myanmar. As for military cooperation, Lieutenant General Manet also noticed that strong bilateral cooperation manifests through various agreements at both of the level of the government and the level of the Ministry of National Defence. Through these bases, many cooperation activities were implemented, including disaster and docking exercises, military assistance and human resources training in military skills, peacekeeping operations, and the French language, especially support for activity military academies and a National Centre for Peacekeeping Forces Management and clearance of mines and explosive remnants of war. In response, Ambassador Jacques Palais expressed his pride in historical relationship between Cambodia and France, especially in 2022, which marks the 70th anniversary in diplomatic relations between the two countries and the 30th anniversary of the French peacekeeping operations in Cambodia. The ambassador noted that Cambodia is a country that has been bitter history of victim of chronic war, but now Cambodia has a highly capable army that is experienced in peacekeeping, has proficiency in the French language, and has been on the duty in many countries in the world. The ambassador said that there was the most proud it has been 19% of the Cambodian Blue Helmet troops are women, exceeding the expectations of the United Nations. Women forces are very important and high in demand, as most of the victims in warring states are women, making it imperative that the women be able to work closely with other women. The French ambassador also congratulated Cambodia for being one of the leading countries in the world for combating the controlling the spread of COVID-19, and further congratulated Lieutenant General Hun Manet on his recent reward from the Royal Government of Cambodia for his past contributions in the fight against COVID-19. Going forward, the two sides expressed their willingness and interest in stepping up efforts to boost military cooperation between the two countries, especially in considering building direct relations between the two countries' armies, which can be an important part of strengthening relations between the two countries. The two sides also exchanged views on the global and regional issues, noting the importance and necessary in peace, stability and development for all. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
On Tuesday, 17th of May, Lieutenant General Hun Manet, the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces, met with Anatoly Borovic, the Ambassador of the Russian Federation to Cambodia, at the headquarters of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces. EAC News reporter Dachan Kochin has the story.
During the meeting, the Russian ambassador praised the royal government of Cambodia for successfully controlling the spread of COVID-19, which has allowed Cambodia to reopen the country and begin its socio-economic recovery process in all sectors. He highlighted the past good relations between the Cambodian and Russian armies, and also expressed his willingness to continue strengthening the army cooperation. In response, Lieutenant General Hun Manet expressed his appreciation for the long-standing friendly relations between the two countries, as well as his appreciation for the cooperation between the Cambodian and Russian armies, especially the many joint activities that have been conducted, such as the exchange of visits and training of human resources. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces and Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Army, Lieutenant General Hun Manet, has stated that religion has played an important role in social moral education, as learning, devotion, and obedience in pagodas has led to many positive results among the Cambodian people. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has further details.
Lieutenant General Hun Manet's statement of religious education was made during the groundsbreaking ceremony for the new Wat Kiri Osa Tokchul Pagoda in Tokchul District, Kampot Province on Wednesday, 18th of May. He said that the promotion of showing the positive thoughts through Buddhist education is traditional that elders have shared to the next generation. He added that Buddhist education is also integrated within the imperial education system, aiming to bestow the Cambodian children with morals, virtue and bright intellectual capabilities that will help contribute to building harmony and social and national development. He said religion teaches people to keep the Dharma with themselves, especially the leaders of countries who are responsible for the fate of the people, even more so to practice the Dharma consistently, because division from this path will lead to fever and destruction of the nation, as what happened under the Pol Pot regime. He stressed that this is a sense. It is not important how big or small the country is. The main thing is the leadership that led the Dharma, honestly and the sacrifice to serve, protect and save the people in cases without running away, even in situations of crisis. He added that this is what the CPP has done in leading the country for more than 40 years, by saving lives from war and crisis, improving the lives, health and of the people together to fulfill merits and providing education and job opportunities, and to continue this cause onward. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The US-led North Atlantic Treaty Organization has fueled the current Russia-Ukraine crisis through its continued efforts to supply weapons to Ukraine instead of focusing on ways to mediate and resolve the conflict through peaceful negotiations, according to a Danish scholar.
Sweden and Finland will today hand in their respective applications to NATO to join the organization, Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson said on Tuesday. In Sweden and Finland, we also agreed to go hand in hand through this entire process, and we will tomorrow together file the application, she told a joint news conference with Finnish President Sauli Niinisto in the Swedish capital. With Finland and Sweden speeding up their bids to join the 30-member military alliance, Jan Oberg, who is the founder of the Transnational Foundation for Peace and Future Research in Denmark, told reporters that many of the current problems have been created by NATO's military moves. Look at what NATO has been doing in the past 30 years. They have created the problems we have now. The solution to the Ukraine crisis is not militarizing more, because one of the reasons that we have the problems we have, and now we see how the NATO is arming Ukraine completely madly instead of working for peace and mediation and negotiations and some kind of new security structure for Europe, you pump in weapons, 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 he said. That's the only thing people in NATO know, and members of NATO and the United States know, is every problem must be solved by more weapons, Oberg added. Sweden on Monday took the formal decision to apply for NATO membership, following in the footsteps of its neighbor Finland, a decision which would see an end to the long-term neutral military stance of both countries. Russian President Vladimir Putin stressed that Russia has no problem with Finland and Sweden's NATO membership bid, but will react if NATO's move in the two countries is considered a threat. Finland and Sweden voiced optimism on Tuesday that common ground can be found with Turkey over its objections to them joining NATO amid a flurry of diplomatic activity aimed at smoothing their path into the 30-nation alliance. Turkey surprised many NATO allies on Monday by saying it would not support membership for Sweden and Finland after the two countries took the widely anticipated step of agreeing to apply to join the US-led alliance this week. Niinisto said he talked by the phone with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan a month ago and that the message then had been supportive of Finnish and Swedish membership in NATO. But in the last week, he has said not favorable, Niinisto said. That means we have to continue our discussions. I am optimistic. Niinisto and Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson will travel to the United States to meet U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday to discuss the applications, the three administrations said separately on Tuesday. The U.S. is confident it can preserve NATO consensus to admit Sweden and Finland, the State Department commented.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said on Tuesday, 17th of May, the U.S. economic embargo on Cuba was a genocidal policy, raising the stakes in a standoff with Washington over its treatment of the communist ruled Caribbean island. López Obrador, a leftist who has repeatedly called for the United States to end the embargo, said earlier in May that he would not attend the U.S.-hosted Summit of the Americas next month unless all countries in the region were invited. Speaking at a regular government news conference, López Obrador said the United States looked bad in how it was treating Cuba and urged Washington to end the embargo. Still, he welcomed moves announced by the U.S. government on Monday that will ease some Trump-era restrictions on the island and increase the processing of U.S. visas for Cubans. López Obrador on Wednesday is due to meet with a U.S. delegation for the Summit of the Americas, in which he plans to explain why Mexico wants all countries in the region to attend. Cuban optimistic after U.S. eases restrictions, it will make life better. Cubans in Havana on Tuesday, 17th of May, celebrated the Biden administration decision to ease Trump-era restrictions on remittances and travel to the island, a crack in the door that comes as its communist-run government wrestles with the economic crisis and a mass exodus of its citizens to the United States. Cuban citizen Rafael Vadecchia said the decision will make life better for his countrymen at home and abroad, hoping for better relationships between both countries. The measures announced on Monday mark the most significant changes in U.S. policy to Cuba since President Joe Biden took office in January 2021, but stopped well short of the historic rapprochement under former President Barack Obama. Among Cubans on the island desperate to reunite with loved ones in the United States, the announcement that the U.S. would restart a visa program aimed at bringing together families was hailed as a blessing. But it made clear that the United States would not remove entities from the Cuba restricted list, a State Department list of the Cuban government and military-aligned companies with whom U.S. firms and citizens are barred from doing business. The spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy in Cambodia, Chad Rodemir, has told EAC News that there is currently a U.S. law enforcement investigation into the 11th of May incident wherein a 75-year-old Cambodian American man Oktut threw his shoe at Prime Minister Hun Sen while the Cambodian leader was in Washington, D.C. for the ASEAN-U.S. Special Summit. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochin has the story.
In an email response sent to EAC News on Thursday, 19th May, spokesperson Chad Rodemeyer wrote, "The United States takes the safety and security of all diplomats and visiting dignitaries very seriously." He further added, "Regarding the specific incident on May 11th, there is a U.S. law enforcement investigation into the matter. It will be thorough and in full accordance with U.S. law." The confirmation from the U.S. Embassy comes just days after the Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen asked the United States to comment on whether the shoe-throwing incident in Washington, D.C. could be considered an act of freedom of expression or violence. Addressing a meeting with the Samdech Tekcho Voluntary Youth Association at the OCIC Center in Phnom Penh on Tuesday, 17th May 2022, Prime Minister Hun Sen said, "In all countries, including Cambodia, all opposition groups will be hit in the head with shoes. There are no more rules in the world." According to Title 18, Section 112 of the U.S. Code, special protection is offered to foreign officials, official guests, and internationally protected persons. Whoever assaults, strikes, wounds, imprisons, or offers violence against one of these people can be fined, face imprisonment for up to 3 years, or both. Assault under common law covers not only the attempt to inflict harm, but also placing someone under reasonable apprehension of harm, which may count shoe throwing. If a jury decides that throwing a shoe and missing does not quite rise to the level of assault, they might find the perpetrator guilty of coercing or harassing a foreign official or obstructing the official in the performance of his duties. These lesser offenses carry a sentence of not more than 6 months in prison or a fine.
EAC News is grateful for the U.S. Embassy's prompt response and willingness to engage with us on this matter. We are hopeful that the U.S. law enforcement's thorough investigation will lead to a just outcome. Darshana Gochin, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
The Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces and the Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Army, Lieutenant General Hun Man Nait, has stated that the defense sector is the backbone of national duty and the common cause of the Khmer nation, which includes national defense, religion, king, and the government, who aim to ensure the absolute peace, stability, security, and sustainable development of Cambodian society. On this matter, he said that in order to effectively respond to demands, the defense sector needs to continually be modernized with a clear direction and a long-term vision of independence in regard to leadership, training, and equipment. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has the details.
Lieutenant General Hun Manet made a statement at the inauguration ceremony of the Army Tank Command Building and the opening of the 2022 Armoured Tank Training Course in Battambang Province on Thursday, 19th of May. He further expressed his congratulations for the new construction of the new Army headquarters, which was a gift from the Prime Minister Hun Sen, and said that this building can also be considered a new historic achievement in Cambodia, which shows the progressive transformation of Army Tank Command. He added that this continuous growth reflects the attention and the consideration of the Prime Minister to the well-being of soldiers and their families in all units of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces. Moreover, he said that the Prime Minister provides all levels of support in terms of spirit, budget and resource to facilitate daily work, training, equipment and various facilities, improving the well-being of the Army and Army's families through the construction of camps, shelters, the provision of food and more. Lieutenant General Hun Manet underlined that this because the Prime Minister Hun Sen himself was a soldier who went through most difficulties in the fire of war. He continues in his speech that the inauguration also shows the strong solidarity between the Armoured Tank Command, the General Department of Taxation and Vatinak Group, in achieving tasks that are in line with the Prime Minister's vision of the long-term commitment to establishing close brotherhood between the front and rear battles. This, he said, acts as the foundation of the people's defence and supports the Army's performance in strengthening their entire defence. The Royal Cambodian Armed Forces Deputy Commander-in-Chief expresses appreciation for efforts of the Army Tank Command in the relaunch in 2022 Armoured Tank Training Course after 2 years postponed due to the spread of COVID-19. He said that his training course responds to the need of strengthening and expanding the professional capacity of soldiers to ensure sustainability in their ability to perform their duties in the future in the long term of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces and particularly within the Army Tank Command. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
On Thursday afternoon, Prime Minister Hun Sen sent a message through his social media account to his compatriots in Cambodia about his trip to attend the World Economic Forum annual meeting 2022 under the theme Working Together Restoring Trust at the invitation of Professor Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. EAC News reporter Darshana Gochin has the details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen said goodbye to his compatriots in Cambodia for a short period of time and also promised to soon meet with his compatriots in Europe. The Prime Minister said, at 1:30 a.m. on May 21, 2022, tomorrow I will lead a Cambodian delegation to attend the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. I would like to thank my compatriots living in European countries who released a video celebrating my trip to Europe. As planned, I will meet our Cambodian compatriots in Zurich, Switzerland on the evening of May 21, 2022. According to the Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Prime Minister Hun Sen is expected to hold meetings with leaders of other countries, receive courtesy calls from political and business figures, and also meet with Cambodians living in Switzerland and other European countries. During his stay in Switzerland, the Prime Minister will deliver the opening speech of Cambodia Night, an event sponsored by World Bridge Group to promote foreign businesses in Cambodia. Darshana Gochin, EAC News.
Cambodia wins their second gold medal in the Patong event with the women's triples Sreya On, Lina Dung, Sorakim Sreng. Balisu winning gold in the wrestling men's freestyle 125 kg. This now brings Cambodia's medal tally to 6 gold, 9 silver, and 23 bronze with a total of 38 medals. Cambodia's best gold medal result is 8 gold in Naypyidaw, Myanmar in 2013, and our best medal tally is 53 in Kuala Lumpur 1971. The SEA Games will be held in Cambodia from the 5th to the 16th of May next year. The host country is still on top of the medal tally with a total of 331 medals. Vietnam is still leading the gold medal tally with 154 gold, followed by Thailand 62, Singapore 44, Indonesia 43, Philippines 40, and Malaysia 34, and Cambodia has 6 gold. 3 days to go, Cambodia is still in with a chance to win more medals.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega said on Wednesday, 19th of May, that his government was not interested in attending the US-hosted summit of the Americas next month, which some leaders have criticized for reports it may exclude the Central American country, along with Cuba and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's government. Nicaragua was previously informed that it would be excluded from the summit, which will take place in Los Angeles, according to a person in Washington familiar with the matter. President of Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, said, "I say from here to the Yankee, forget it. We are not interested in being at that summit. Yes, it's going to be filled with you-know-what. That summit does not dignify anyone. It rather dirties them, it sullies them. We Latin Americans must defend ourselves so they respect us. It's shameful the show the Yankee rulers are putting with this famous summit they call Summit of the Americas." Ortega won a fourth consecutive term in November after jailing rivals and cracking down on critical media, triggering international criticism. He has frequently accused the United States of being interventionist and trying to undermine his government. He added in Wednesday's speech that Latin American leaders already meet via the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, comprised of 32 countries. A senior State Department official said in April that Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's government would likely be excluded because the summit is meant to focus on democracy in the region. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has urged all countries to be included and said he might not attend otherwise. On Thursday, he told reporters he expected a response from the U.S. President Joe Biden this week after expressing concern to U.S. Special Advisor Christopher Dodd. Tensions have risen over signals that Cuba, along with Nicaragua and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's government, could be excluded from the US-hosted Summit of the Americas next month, a potential boycott by a growing number of leaders, including Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has raised the risk of embarrassment for President Joe Biden. The Biden administration on Thursday accused Cuba of fueling controversy over its possible exclusion from the summit to pit itself against the United States and distract attention from its human rights record at home. Sri Lankan police fired tear gas and water cannon on Thursday, May 19, to push back student protesters who marched through the street of Colombo, demanding the arrest and removal of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Hundreds of fluents carrying black flags marched Colombo's central fort area, chanting slogans against the government. Police fired repeated rounds of tear gas and water cannon to push them back.
Sri Lankan government, they're killing the young people. This is right or wrong. They are terrorists. Gotabaya is terrorist. Rajapaksa is terrorist. We don't need like this leaders. We kill up. We don't give up these people. We want to be throw out this Rajapaksa family and the 225 leaders in Sri Lanka out of Sri Lanka. They are thieves. They are the terrorists in Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka's economic crisis has come from the confluence of COVID-19 pandemic, battering the tourism-reliant economy, rising oil prices, running out of medicines, foreign reserves, and populist tax cuts by the government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his brother Mahinda, who resigned as Prime Minister last week. Other factors have included heavily subsidized domestic prices of fuel and a decision to ban the import of chemical fertilizers, which devastated the agricultural sector. Sri Lanka's central bank has secured foreign exchange to pay for fuel and cooking gas shipments that will ease crippling shortages, its governor said on Thursday, while police fired tear gas and water cannon to push back student protesters. Most of Sri Lanka's petrol stations have run dry as the island nation battles its most devastating economic crisis since independence in 1948. Inflation hit 29.8% in April, with food prices up 46.6% year on year. Sri Lanka is also officially now in default on its sovereign debt as a so-called grace period to make some already overdue bond interest payments expired on Wednesday. The G7 economic powers support efforts to provide debt relief for Sri Lanka, G7 finance chief said on Thursday in a draft communique from a meeting in Germany after the country defaulted on its sovereign debt. And finally, Ukraine's Kalush Orchestra won the Eurovision Song Contest on Saturday, 14th of May, making Ukrainians proud and hopeful of another win in their battle against invading Russian forces.
Ukraine's Kalush Orchestra won the contest in Italy on Saturday night with their entry Stefania, riding a wave of public support to claim an emotional victory that was welcomed by the country's president. Sung in Ukrainian, the winning song fused rap with traditional folk music and was a tribute to band frontman Olesiuk's mother. Kyiv resident Lyubov Savinkova said she was overwhelmed watching the show on Saturday and seeing other countries' contestants' public show of sympathy for Ukraine following Russia's invasion in February.
Yesterday we watched Eurovision. Emotions were very cool. We were very happy with Ukraine's victory and we hope that we will win not only at Eurovision. I was overwhelmed with emotions when Iceland came up with Ukrainian flags and also when Kalush spoke for Azovstal. I am now also recording Instagram stories here where there is a banner for Mariupol because we are also very worried about them and happy for our victory.
Housewife Natalia Suvarova said it was key that Ukraine host next year's song contest despite ongoing fighting.
На мою думку, потрібно приймати Євробачення, тому що
I think we should host Eurovision because we can. Maybe we may not be on the same scale as in previous times or in other countries, but it can be done differently. But it is necessary to host Eurovision.
Це можна зробити по-іншому, але приймати потрібно.
Residents in the Ukrainian town of Kalush, hometown to the winners of the 2022 Eurovision Song Contest, were in seventh heaven on Sunday. Proud residents strolled in the sunshine in Ukraine's western Ivano-Frankivsk region the day after Kalush Orchestra triumphed with their entry Stefania.
With all my soul, all my love, I love my Kalash. My wife and I have been watching sing until 1 a.m. and we were happy to win. I was jumping. I was seventh heaven, you understand? How I worried about my guys, but I also want us to end the war as fast as possible, and it would be an even bigger victory.
Other residents say they had no doubt Ukraine would win, and some also said they think Ukraine is ready to host Eurovision. The winners traditionally get to host the event the following year, and Ukraine is hoping that it will be in a position to do so in 2023. This is the third time that Ukraine has won Eurovision. Ukraine was in fourth place based on jury voting, but claimed victory with a record tally in viewer voting in an event that features 40 nations.
Around 200 people competed in what organizers called the world's first pedalo championship in a park of the Belgian capital Brussels on Sunday, 15th of May.
Paddle boats, also known as pedalos, are a popular attraction among locals and tourists who rent them out for leisure sails at the picturesque Bois de la Cambre pond. Hundreds of fans and onlookers showed up to cheer for 20 teams who were given 4 hours to complete as many laps as possible. Jean-Christophe Gies, the organizer of Belgian Pedalo World Championships, said that it's an offbeat event that allows all kinds of people to join and have fun. Francois Dewell, one of the participants, said they pedaled, but they didn't move forward, which was exactly as planned. There is a good vibe going on. On the other hand, also taking part in the race was 32-year-old Ariane Rogeman, who said that her strategy was to be fast, not to be afraid of getting wet, and above all, to keep well hydrated. Although for most participants taking part in the competition seemed more important than winning it, a team named Baywatch took the race seriously and finished first after having completed no less than 42 laps, paddling a distance of 17,640 meters. A second round of the Belgian Pedalo World Championship will take place on May 22nd.
Graffiti artists from all over Brazil spray-painted on Tuesday, May 17th, 11 freedom-themed illustrations at the Three Powers Plaza in Brasilia to celebrate the South American nation's 200th anniversary of independence. The effort is part of the Supreme Court program to combat misinformation, fake news, and hate speech. Each illustration corresponds to the content of the article by the Supreme Court ministers on civil liberties as part of the Liberties Project booklet aimed to inspire young communities. The artists were selected by the founder of the Carioca Graffiti School and the Graffiti Museum in Rio de Janeiro, Rafael Araujo dos Santos Barbosa. Amazonian-born graffiti artist Shamir Ferreira said that her artwork generally focuses on economic freedom, and that is why she chose to paint an indigenous woman who is knitting clothes to generate income for the indigenous people. The Liberties Project book will be released on August according to the Supreme Court, and it will feature all the graffiti illustrations with summaries of the minister's articles. And finally, learning more about Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky just got a little easier with the release of the tidal wave comics biographical comic book Political Power Volodymyr Zelensky. A portion of the comic book released on the 18th of May will be donated to the International Red Cross in honor of the crisis in Ukraine. The 22-page glossy tells the story of how Vladimir Zelensky swept to power 3 years ago, promising to end a war with Moscow-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine, and how he now faces a Russian invasion that could result in the overthrow of his government and the end of Ukrainian democracy. Zelensky, best known for playing a fictitious president in a TV show, had no political experience when he took office as the country's sixth president. The US-based publisher Darren G. Davis said in a statement, "This book means a lot to me because of my Ukrainian heritage. Both sets of my grandparents immigrated from Ukraine. I wanted to use this medium to not only tell a story, but to somehow donate to the cause at the same time," said publisher Darren G. Davis. Now let's have a look at the weather and what you can expect for the next few days. Thank you for watching the Weekly Roundup here on EAC News Channel. More from the EAC News team in the Daily Roundup on Monday night at 8 p.m. See you then!